Lib 104, Introduction to Library Technical Services, Week 2, Library Technical Services Functions. Hello, class. Last week, we explored libraries in general. You were introduced to the 4 types of libraries: academic, school, public, and special. You were also introduced to challenges that libraries face that were identified as asteroids in our reading. Today, we're going to dive further into technical services, its functional areas, and then how it relates to the concept of service in a library. As mentioned last week, although there are differences between library types, there are certain structures that are common amongst most libraries. Here, when we mention functional areas, are those that are with a defined structure within the library. So some of those common areas are technical services, which sometimes includes acquisitions and cataloging. Although some libraries have acquisitions and cataloging as separate, independent functional areas along with technical services, which would then be more focused on just physical processing and managing the physical collection as well. Though not part of technical services per se, libraries commonly have a technology or systems area that oversees all the different technological systems that the library uses. On the public service side of the house, we have circulation or access services, which focuses on getting material into the hands of community members. We also have reference services, which assist community members with finding resources within the library's collection or beyond. Then there are other areas that might be present at some libraries, but not all libraries. Children's services you will find in most public libraries. Archives can be found in academic libraries and some public and special libraries. Special collections can be found as a structure in academic and some public libraries. Outreach might be present within most libraries, but usually more commonly found as a part of a defined structure in academic and public libraries. Instruction will be most commonly seen in academic and school libraries, while programming, much like outreach, might be present in some shape or form in most libraries, but is most likely aligned with a strong structure across public libraries. The difference between outreach and programming is that outreach is when the library seeks out outside organizations to work with or tries to establish relations with community members not present in the library, while programming are coordinated events held by the library. In guiding all of this are our professional standards. For paraprofessionals working in libraries, we may want to take a look at the library support staff certification competencies. If you are not familiar with these outline what training programs, like the one here at PCC, should align their curriculum with to ensure that library staff have a base set of knowledge and skills to be successful in the workplace. The LSSC is from the ALA, Allied Professional Association, and outlines a few core knowledge areas for all staff: foundations of library services, communication and teamwork, and technology. They then outline elective areas which include access services, adult readers advisory services, cataloging and classification, reference and information services, supervision and management, and youth services. Specific for this course is the collections competencies. The LSSC collections competencies outline for us what staff should know when they are working within areas of collection development and management, or technical services. As you look over this list of 10 competencies, you should notice a lot of topics that have already been referenced in our introduction to the course. And there may be terms or phrases in the competencies that seem odd or unfamiliar. Have no worries. You will become familiar with them as you move through this course. As an instructor, I like to reflect on these to make sure that the course is supplying guidance in these areas, which I'm confident it does, although I always believe in improvement. The ALA Code of Ethics is another document that outlines ethics for the entire profession. According to ALA, libraries significantly influence or control the selection, organization, preservation, and dissemination of information. In a political system grounded in an informed citizenry, the library profession is explicitly committed to intellectual freedom and the freedom of access to information. Libraries have a special obligation to ensure the free flow of information and ideas to present and future generations. The principles of this code are expressed in broad statements to guide ethical decision-making. These statements provide a framework. They cannot and do not dictate conduct to cover particular situations. There's a lot to unpack in the Code of Ethics, and you'll have time to reflect in discussion board this week about these statements. So to review from last week, technical services has two main areas: collection development and processing. In collection development, we identify what we need, we select items, and then we acquire them. Once we receive them, the items are cataloged, prepared physically for shelving, and then stored on the shelves. And deaccession, or weeding of the materials, occurs in both processing and collection development areas. These two processes, collection development and processing, can also be described through a cycle of materials in the library. This cycle starts with identifying what the library might need. Once we identify materials needed, libraries can then select the specific materials that they want to buy. Once approved, these materials are acquired and purchased. They are then received and processed and stored. If all is done correctly, the materials can then be found by community members who will hopefully use the materials. After their use is no longer needed, those materials can be weeded to make room for new materials to be identified. So that ends the overview of the functions of library technical services. This week you have a couple of tasks in addition to your reading and weekly quiz. In Library Thing, you'll be adding tags to your books. There is a separate video that shows you how to do this. But tags are basically additional keywords that are added to items to make them more findable or discoverable, sort of like hashtags in social media to find posts. These tags that you assign to books are ways for others to find them as well. Catalogers use subject headings that are a standardized way to assist in finding materials, but tags are an informal way to also support this. And since this isn't a cataloging course, we won't be walking down that road of standardized subject headings. You will also be setting up your LibGuides account. LibGuides is a platform that many libraries use, mostly academic, but some public and school libraries do as well, to put together resources and links to other resources around topics for their community members. We'll be using it as a way to support one of your final projects for this course. All you have to do this week, though, is set up your account. There's a separate video with those details as well. Have a great week.